Hey, in today's video about seed starting, we're going to talk about 3 things you need to do to turn this into this. Stay tuned. Good morning. Hey, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about seed starting at Millsap Farm today. I've got a lot more in-depth and a longer webinar that's on this channel, but I thought I'd hit the 3 big high points from my perspective today about seed starting, seedling production. And those are going to be media, water, and heat. Not necessarily in that order, but media is the first one, and media is what are we going to grow in. In our case, we love growing in peat and compost mixes. When we got started, we used to do the mix that Elliot Coleman recommends in his book, The New Organic Grower, which is a great mix. It has a little bit of everything in it. It's got some peat, some compost, even some garden soil. It's got a base fertilizer made up of green sand, blood meal, and rock phosphate. And that's a great mix. It does a really good job for us. You can use sand, perlite, or vermiculite for your sort of your water flowing agent, bulking agent. But the problem that we had was mixing the stuff. We had a concrete mixer. We used that to mix our soil, and that worked well. But the problem was getting the recipe accurate and consistent every time. And so what we've switched to since has been bagged media. And this is a pretty standard, scaling up solution. As you start small, it works fairly well to be mixing your own or maybe buying small bags. But as we got bigger, we decided it was time to buy pallets of mix and something that we could rely on consistently to do the same job every time. And so we've tried several different mixes over the years. Berger, which is spelled B-E-R-G-E-R. We've used OM1 and OM2, and those are good mixes, but they're pretty mild, meaning they don't have a lot of nutrients in them. So you're going to have to boost those if you want to get longer term results out of them. What we're using right now, we're really happy with, is Morgan Composting. Morgan Composting is out of Wisconsin. It's Dairy Dew is their brand name, and it's composted dairy manure with some peat and perlite mixed in, and we're very pleased with that. Growing some really healthy seedlings in that, and just think it's a really great mix. They make 201 and 101 and 301. 101 is a germination mix, really a pretty fine mix for small cells. 201 is for the larger cells, so a lot of our 3-inch pots are getting that. Really anything larger than like a 50 in a tray would be a good thing for a 201 or 301. So that's your media. And then temperature really matters. One of the things that we learned early on, mostly by making mistakes, was that we really needed to keep our seedlings warm and consistently warm for them to germinate and then grow out properly. And so we've done that a lot of different ways. Again, as we scaled up, things have changed. Initially, we used some heat mats on a table, and those work pretty good. Those electric heat mats, they have a relatively short lifespan. We find that if we can get 3 or 4 years out of them, we're doing pretty good. So that's kind of a downside. The plus side of them is those electric, they're super easy to plug and play. You have a thermostat, plug them in, run them, and that's what you get. We now have graduated to a hydronic system, and we really like that. It's a hot water circulating system on the surface of the table. It circulates through these black tubes, and it keeps the whole temperature of the table somewhere between 80 and 90 degrees, which then gives us soil temperature around 70, and that works really well for consistent growth. Now before that, in our germination stage, before we put it out on the seedling table to grow, we're going to put it in our germination chamber. And this is a thing that can be rigged on a lot of different scales. Ours is a 3-door glass-fronted cooler, and it has a little heater in the bottom. It has a really nice thermostat. Scrimp on the heater, but spend money on the thermostat. You want accuracy out of your germination chamber. And so that allows us to set temperatures within about a 5-degree range, and that means we get really consistent and timely germination of some of those relatively slow germinators like tomatoes and peppers, eggplant, things that may take a little while. But if you put them in a germination chamber, you'll get pretty consistent 5 to 6 day germinations out of tomatoes, which is pretty fast. And it's just fairly a simple tool. Like I say, in the webinar, there's a lot more information about these and how we built ours and so on. But we've also seen them done, we've used, in fact, in the past, just little grow domes on top of those heat mats, and that works good. We've also used just plastic sheeting over the top of trays. It just gives you a really narrow range of time to pull that plastic off before you start to smother your plants. So there's a lot of different ways to go about this as you scale up, but the reach-in germination chamber really is I think that's the go-to as you get to a scale where you're doing, say 20 or 30 trays a week. That seems like a good solution. And then then water. The last thing I'll say is water. We do a lot of hand watering. And I think that's important. There's the babies that are in the nursery, the seedlings there are really delicate. They need just the right amount of moisture. If you give them too much, they're going to damp off. They're going to get other root rot problems. They're going to get fungus gnats, lots of issues there. But if they're too dry, you're going to stop them from growing. The surest way to keep a plant from growing is to not give it enough water. And so we really want to add water as we need it. But we also want to have a baseline that keeps everything alive, because frankly this time of year life is so busy trying to get everything out in the field, get all the beds prepped and all that sometimes we have a tendency to forget to do all those daily tasks that cry for our attention. Or it starts out like a cool cloudy morning and they don't need much water, and then the sun pops out and all of a sudden you've got a dry seedling table. So the thing we do to keep our water levels up is we have a timer and we have an automatic water system. It's fairly simple. We put it together with parts ordered out of the Morgan County Seed Catalog, and the timer is just the one ordered off Amazon. It's a real simple battery-powered timer. The batteries are effective. It lasts for about a year on one set of batteries, and allows us to water several times a day for varying durations. You can see on this dial timer. And the answer is that then we have about 70% of our water needs met by this automatic water system. So I'm still coming through every day, at least once a day, and topping up with a water wand. But by having this automated system, I'm keeping the plants from dehydrating badly if I happen to miss a day or have a problem and can't get to it that day. And that makes a big difference. It's taken our seedling fatality rate from relatively high early on to almost nothing nowadays, because at least water-based. So those are the big three: media, temperature, and water. And those are some of the solutions we've implemented on the farm. Now, I'll tell you one big mistake, because I promise to share mistakes on every video. The biggest mistake we made early on in seedling growing was not having automated temperature control. And in this case, I'm talking more about the greenhouse itself. So we have a big greenhouse on the farm that actually we bought with the farm, and it's a great structure. It's also gets really hot in here with very little temperature swing outside. And so one morning, it was a Sunday morning. It was a gray, cloudy morning, probably about 40 degrees, and we left, and it didn't seem like there was anything big to be worried about. I didn't open up all the doors and open up the windows like I usually would on a sunny morning. And then about noon, the sun popped out and the temperature rose to only about 60 degrees. But inside the greenhouse, the temperature went up to 130 degrees and stayed there for 2 hours. Killed about half of our plants. So we learned an important lesson that day. One was to vent aggressively, and then the second one was hook up automated fans and ventilation. So have a good plan, but then also provide yourself with a backup. So that's what we learned, and that was probably the worst seedling mistake we ever made. And it's a pretty serious one. But anyway, I hope this was useful. Like I said, focus on those big three: media, water, and temperature, and you'll get really good results out of your seedling, at least in our experiences. Thanks for sharing. If you guys have enjoyed this, please subscribe. That's really important to us. And also comment if you've got something you want to say or a question you want to ask. We're glad to help out, or always interested in input as well. So thanks for watching.